Hello. This is yet another spur of the moment session. I have these Nila Colori paints that were sent to me by them to try out. They are an Italian company that specializes in handmade watercolors that are created with ancient and mineral pigments. So I've had this for a little while and I haven't had a chance to try them out yet besides doing some swatching. So there's 12 colors in this set. It's just a little tin. And I swatched them out when I first received it, but I haven't really had a chance to paint with them yet. So this is what it looks like. They're half pans, and I'm gonna give them a try today. I also have a couple of Tracy Lebenzon's brushes. So let's see, what should I start with here? I think this Cobalt turquoise light is the one that really draws me in. If you know me at all, I'm always drawn to the really pretty blues, bright blue colors. So I'm going to do that. And I've got some cold press paper here. This is Etcher's watercolor pad. It's a cotton cold press, 300 gram, so 140 pound for those of us that go in pounds versus grams. And let's see, actually, first, swiping a little bit of water. I'm just mark making here. I like the cold press for this kind of thing sometimes though, because normally I work with hot press, but right now this is cold press. And I like how I can get the brush to skip over the surface a bit. Let's use some of this ultramarine blue as well. Ooh, that's really nice and dark and pigmented. I like that. And there's a nice array of earthy tones here. There's a golden ochre, Urcolano red, and Armenian bowl. Oh, and then there's this cadmium Bordeaux, which is kind of a very warm brownish red, and cadmium red, which tints more towards the orange, bright tones. I think I'm going to use this Armenian bowl. I like how pigmented these are. I don't really have to work at the cake very much to get a lot of nice pigment onto my brush. And I'm just dotting things wet and wet here for fun. Thank you, Lesbo Zombie. I'm glad you're joining me here today. I always like indigo. I'm going to drop some of that in here as well. I think I want to paint some little kingfisher birds into this. I gotta wait for this little bit to dry first before I can do that, though. This turquoise light really just reminds me of this cobalt turquoise. This makes me think of kingfisher birds. KQ, yes, I will definitely be saving this live session. I'll have it in my IGTV later, and you can also view it on my Instagram. Sorry, on my YouTube. So yeah, you can go to sleep. 4 o'clock a.m. If you have any questions you want to drop for me here before you head off to bed, feel free to do so. A little bit of bright orange splash for the chest. Oh, that may have been a bit too much, but that's okay. I like painting into these wet areas right now because that lets the color bleed out a little bit and get soft and fuzzy. But also I can have some hard edges on the places where it's dry. I'm just blending this out now into the wet area. I love bright blues. They're always my favorite color to paint with, I think. Oh, I forgot to put some red on his chest over here. darkness over here for the feet. When people ask me if I've got any advice for them if they've never done watercolors before and they just want to try it, this is what I would say to do. Just kind of don't have any expectations and throw some color on the page and see what happens with it. See how it spreads and moves. Play with the colors that you enjoy and that call out to you. And in general, just kind of learn to relax with watercolors. Because I think that's always the biggest frustration for people when it doesn't behave like they want it to behave. And the thing is that watercolors kind of behave like they want to behave. I mean, you do become more experienced with it, and you sort of realize what happens when you do certain things. You know, like I know that with the paper at a certain moisture level that I can just see from the way the light reflects off of it. You know, I can look at it and see, okay, that's at a moisture level where it will allow paint to spread, or no, that's at a moisture level where paint is now going to sit where I stick it. And it just becomes something you gain experience with over time. I'm just splattering some of that color in. I'm going to do it with a bigger brush because then I can get more water on it. Let's see. Yeah, I want some more of that blue. And I'm just got a little bit more exuberant and some of that splashed into my face. So yeah, don't do that. Hit it lightly. And that just lets the paint splatter from your brush a little bit. All right, I need a moment to step away and wipe the paint from my face from that. I think that ranks up there with dipping your paintbrush into your tea instead of your paint water. Robin's Nest Art says, "Hi, I bought my kids every one of your books and use them often with my art students as well. Thank you so much." I'm so glad to hear that, Robin. Robin's Nest Art School. Okay, I'm so glad to hear that. I hope they're enjoying it. I hope you are too. All right, let's see. Getting some more of this golden ochre. How old are the kids that you work with? And I'm doing more of that tapping now. Let's see, this stuff down here is a little bit more dry now. going to do a few more birds down here as well, I think. Okay, now this stuff is dry. I'm going to take a pen with some ink in it. Let's see, is this good? Haven't used this in a while. I need to make sure my ink is good in it. I think, yeah, I am dry of ink. Let me see if I have another one. That one is also dry. I guess it's been a while since I've been using these. All right, let's fill one of them up. Hello to you in Spain. Thanks for joining me. Around the corner here, I am just grabbing some ink to fill this pen with. I've got Lidte, which is Herbin, and I've got a refillable cartridge, so I can just do this to get some ink into my pen. You see there's ink in there now, in the cartridge. And then dry off the tip so that I don't have brown fingers when I start to draw. Close that up so I don't accidentally spill it. So this is a tip. This is a flex point tip, which I like for drawing with. Now, I have a fountain pen, but quill pens work perfectly fine as well, and for a tiny fraction of the price, 99 cents for a nib, and they work great. But sometimes I just like the feel of a fountain pen, so I have this for fun. Oh, hello to Japan also. Wow, I've got people from all over right now. Which blue is this? Right here. So this is a set that I'm playing around with for the first time right now. It is an Italian brand. It's called Nila Colori, and they sent this to me to test out. And I the quickest way to my heart is always with a bright colored blue. So I started off with playing with this Cobalt turquoise light. And there's also a little bit of ultramarine blue over here and some Indian indigo. And yeah, I think those three are the main blues that I have on the page currently. But now I have a fountain pen full of brown ink, and I'm just going to start noodling around in here. This is not a waterproof ink, so it will flow and move if I decide to activate it again by painting on top, which I frequently like to do. I don't like waterproof elements. They always bug me when I've tried working with them in my paintings, because I kind of like the way I can constantly make stuff change and shift as the piece evolves. So I've tried using waterproof inks as well, and I just didn't like how that felt. It just didn't work with my process very well. I'm just kind of sketching a tree branch that carves through this. All of this piece right now is done very much just on the fly. None of it is planned. Just sat down and decided I like that blue, so let's do something with it. See, I'm going to try some of this Armenian bowl. I just swiped it loosely across in some areas and let my brush play across the surface, so that there are some patches now where as I sketch with this ink, the ink bleeds out a little bit, which just adds to the texture and richness of it. I'm seeing these little patches where the ink just bleeds out like that. I love that. It's so satisfying. Letting it go poof. think I need some more birds. More birds up there. More hints of birds, actually. Because I have all this blue here, so I feel like there should be hints of more of them in there. What kind of brush am I using? These are handmade brushes by Tracy Lebenzon, who is on Instagram. Here, let me type it out for you. Lebenzon paintbrushes. And this particular one is the small stiff synthetic, and this one is a synthetic and goat hair hybrid. But he hand makes all these brushes, and he uses bamboo canes for the handles, so they're super lightweight. And I've been really enjoying, in particular, this small stiff synthetic one, because it seems to serve my purposes across a large array of things. I mean, it lets me do wider sweeping areas of washes as well as fine detail, and it's a synthetic, which is nice. I've been in search of a synthetic that I really enjoyed using, and this seems to be it. A couple little birds perched up over here. Sorry about all the dogs from my neighbors in the background there. Could you hear them? Sounds like a dog scrabbling fight happening. I know the name of one of the dogs because I always hear my neighbor saying, "Oh, Charlie," when he's been barking a lot. A little bit more over here. Twiggy little branch bits trailing off the edges here. And then I have white gel pens. I like to use Uni-ball, Signo. These are the two that I like. So this is the Angelic, and this is the UM153. Angelic is usually a little bit more translucent, and the UM153 is very opaque. And it also has a slightly wider tip, so I'll use them both. It depends on what I'm going for. If I want really bright white, then I use this one, and if I want something a little bit more transparent, I'll sometimes use this one, or for finer lines. Now the set that Nila Colori sent me here is it's very heavy either on earth tones or blues. Those seem to be the two options that are here. And I've sort of browsed their site a little bit, and I see they do have some greens, but it's mostly, they kind of go either way with these. It makes sense that there's a lot of earth tones because they are doing so many natural pigments and things. And the colors are muted, but intense. Does that make sense? I mean, there's no super bright quinquedrones, for example, because those are synthetic. But the colors that they do have here are all very intense in their pigmentation. So I like that. Twang Vibui has asked, do I sketch with pencil or go straight into this? I go both ways. I mean, if I'm doing an elaborate, larger piece, I definitely sketch in pencil. And you may have seen in my stories in the past couple days, I've been working on the sketch for a pretty involved painting that has a sea turtle. And so for something like that, yeah, I definitely spend a lot of time sketching and designing the composition and working everything out. But for this right now, I didn't plan anything at all. I had no idea even what I was going to paint when I sat down. I just started. I opened up this watercolor set. I was going to give these Nila Coloris a try because I hadn't yet gotten around to that. And so I just began painting with splotches of blue on my page. If you go back and watch the beginning of this live session later, because I'll save it so you can watch it at your leisure. But if you go back and see the beginning, you'll see how I just basically started with a blank page and a set of paints and decided to splatter paint in a wash, a speckled wash across my page, and then started pulling out shapes and things from it. So this is totally relaxed and just kind of having fun and letting the paint and colors pull me into whatever wants to appear on the page. And at this point, this is a mixture of watercolor paints and ink and white gel pen. But yeah, this one was not planned at all, and it was just all done on the fly. But that's not how I work all the time. It's depends on my mood. Depends on what I'm feeling up for. This is sort of a relaxing thing sometimes, to not have any expectations of yourself or what the paint is going to do, and to just let yourself learn how the pigment behaves and does its thing. I love doing that little dot of red on their chests. Hello, newcomers. Welcome. Let me know if you have questions about anything. Cave Arts asks, do I have any tips on avoiding splotchy color transitions or blending? Yeah, if you don't want it to be splotchy, you have to be really careful of your moisture levels. So splotchiness happens when the water moisture on your paper is not evenly distributed, because if there's more liquid in an area, then that's going to allow the pigment to collect there, and especially on the edges. So pigment will always move towards the edge of a moist area. Well, not always, but frequently does. That's why when you paint a patch, you'll see it'll kind of be ringed on the edge with slightly darker tone. I mean, even in these little things that I just did now, those little splotches. So you see these? It's a little bit darker on the border of it. So if you're trying to have a large area that's smooth and you don't want to have splotchiness, then you have to maintain an even moisture level across the area that you're painting. And you can fudge it a little sometimes by taking your brush and either adding more liquid to it or taking a paper towel and dabbing liquid away. But that's, in brief, how you avoid having splotchy color transitions. So when I'm doing a large area and I want it to be blended smoothly, I have to work fast. Now, this is a small painting, so I'm not going to have any problem with anything like that in this. But if I'm doing a larger one and I wanted to have a continuous smooth wash in an area, well, that's why people do washes, because a wash lets you sweep your brush across the page and get a large swath of it at a time that's going to be consistent in its moisture level, and that's what allows you to keep it smooth. But if you're working in an area that's kind of got corners and edges and things, that gets more complicated, and it does become a lot harder to work quickly enough within the frame of that area to maintain smoothness. And that's where practice comes in, because as you work more with watercolors, you can become more adept at doing that and controlling that. And controlling the moisture levels, I think, more and more, like the longer I've worked with watercolors, the more and more I feel like that is kind of the key to getting the paint to behave the way you want it to, is understanding the moisture on your paper and being able to keep tabs on it and control that, and knowing when to paint certain areas and when to move quickly, etc. What kind of paper am I using? I am using Etchers Cotton 300 gram cold press. This isn't the paper I usually work on most of the time, but I like it for when I'm just playing around with paints and washes and things, because the cold press allows for more looseness. It allows for stuff like this to happen in this, those white specks that you see over here, because those two areas, that's caused by my brush skipping over the roughness in the page, and over here too. That's some of it. And that happens much more easily with cold press than it does with hot press paper. Let's see, is that red or brown I used in the bird? So the birds have been done with, the main color is Cobalt Turquoise Light, with the red chest being cadmium red, and I just dot that in. I do the blue, and then here, let me do another one, because I can never have enough birds. Let's see, where's this one going to go? I think this branch over here needs one kind of curved around on the underside of it. It's kind of scrabbling and holding on to the branch with his feet. You've seen birds do that. Alright, so that's painted with the Cobalt turquoise light, and then I take a little bit of this cadmium red and just go dot and let it spread a little bit because it's all wet still. And then I take a little bit of this Indian indigo to darken the beak and the head and the feet. And I do that all while the blue, the Cobalt turquoise is wet so that it spreads out a little bit. And the brush is a handmade brush by Tracy Lebenzon, and I linked it earlier in the chat here, so if you scroll up you'll see where I've linked Lebenzon paintbrushes. And he says that he'll give it 10% off to anyone if you mention Stephanie when you purchase. But this is the small stiff synthetic brush, and it is my favorite of the ones that I've tried from him. So I think this piece is done. I mean, I could keep noodling around on it forever. Do some more twiggy branches and things. Oh, see, this is what happened before when I let the ink drop into a wet portion of the page, and I love those splotchy bleeding spreads that it does. So I think I'm about done here. If anyone has some last few questions to ask before I head off, let me know. I'll be saving this stream, so you'll be able to find it if you just go to my Instagram page. You'll see it if you want to watch again or recommend it to someone later. Or catch up on the beginning part if you join me late. There, now it's done. So thank you everybody for joining me. Thanks for your questions. This was one of my unplanned streams. I've been doing weekly ones scheduled for Monday, so I think the next scheduled one is Monday next week at 6 p.m. Pacific time. So that would be right about now in terms of the time of day. But every once in a while, the impulse catches me and I sort of do these impromptu streams. And this was one of them. I do like turtles, yeah. I'm actually working on painting a much more elaborate piece that has some sea turtles in it. I might work on that one a little bit on Monday. Anyway, there we go. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining me from all over the world.